Hey guys, Ultima here, bringing you my EX1 Machinedramon control deck profile. In case you're wondering what do you mean with Machinedramon control, I think the babies already speak for themselves. So it's pretty much Machinedramon combined with security control, because I did notice that the deck had some issues that security control solves. Like for example, Machinedramon has a lack of memory. I know we play Ultimate Connection, I know we play Izzy and Joe, Yagami Taichi, Izzy, but you know, like, you want to have more than that, in my opinion. Like, Ultimate Connection is so situational because you do need to have another card in your hand, like another level 5. And we do play a lot of level 5s in this deck, don't get me wrong, we play 11. I've seen most decks play like 12, 13, or sometimes even 15 if they have the space for it, but again, Ultimate Connection, just because it has a limitation, and because it also costs 1, unlike Hammer Spark, which costs 0, I did feel like the card didn't really do enough for the deck. And again, you also need more protection, because if your opponent has a rush build, Machinedramon already pretty much dead. Unless you are able to smack Machinedramon on the board fast enough, you're dead. Yellow-Green Rookie Rush doesn't even care about Machinedramon. They just play Spiral Masquerade and it's gone. So yeah, in my opinion, Machinedramon control has a high chance of being decent in the meta. I wouldn't call it tier 1, but I just have to do more testing to accurately state how good this deck is. I've done a few test matches with it, and I've been successful with it. I've managed to play Machinedramon pretty much every round because of it, because you know, security control does help you stall long enough. And that's the whole point of the deck. It lets you stall to build up your Machinedramon, and then at that point, you pretty much win the game unless your opponent has ways to get rid of your Machinedramon. A lot of decks don't, so yeah. Well, I mean, like some decks don't. Like for example, Black has DD Devolve, Blue can bounce it, and Purple has Millenniumon, or well, in general, like Black and Purple have Millenniumon. But those are like the 3 cards that can really easily get rid of Machinedramon. Our decks have to work for it to get rid of Machinedramon. So, anyways, enough rambling, let's start with the deck profile. Starting off with our babies, we play triple Digimon. The reason we play Digimon is because I like the alt art. I just happen to have 3 copies of the alt art Digimon. If I didn't have it, I would probably just play 5 random yellow babies. The reason you want to play more than 1 is because, well, even though we don't play Salamon in this deck, if you do play 4 copies of Upamon, just a hint there. But if you don't play Salamon, you could pretty much just play just 1 baby, because all you need is 1, because it's just used to make your yellow option cards live. But the reason I play several is because it confuses your opponent. So you can somewhat, like early turns, you can kind of confuse your opponent into thinking, is he playing security control or is he not playing security control? I don't know. Of course, if you immediately play Holy Wave, then they will know, but, you know, just saying, like, if they just see 1 card laying there, they already know it's security control, so just make sure that you play more than 1 baby. I would say at least 3 or 4. If I had a 4th baby one, I would play a 4th one. So, yeah. Moving on to our main deck. We play 4 copies of Hagurumon to be able to turn our Clogs, aka the level 5 cyborgs in our hand, into card advantage, because what Hagurumon does is, when he's played, you can trash one of your cyborg or machine type Digimon in your hand. You draw 2 cards, so this does help you get to other Machinedramon pieces, helps you get to Machinedramon, and it helps you get to your recovery option cards. So, just in general, really good to get card advantage. If I were to play Salamon in my deck though, I would probably cut to Hagurumon. Still have 2, but then I also have like ways to recover, so if you do want to run Salamon because it recovers, just cut to Hagurumons and swap them off for Salamons. Alright, moving on to our level 4s, we also only play 4 of those. Play 4 copies of Cordamon. Cordamon is a security Digimon, which means that at the end of battle it plays itself without paying the memory cost. And when it's played, you draw 2 cards. So again, same as Sakurumon, lets you get your Machinedramon pieces and your recovery options, as well as your removal options, of course, faster. So really, really good. Then for our level 5s, we play 11, as I mentioned earlier. Starting off with our EX1 black level 5s, we play 2 copies of Metal Tyrannomon, 1 copy of Andromon, as well as 1 copy of Metal Mamemon. The reason we play these is because they have inheritable effects that help our Machinedramon. So for example, Metal Tyrannomon says that while this Digimon has Machine in its trait during your opponent's turn, gains Reboot. If Andromon, it's during your opponent's turn and gains Blocker. And with Metal Mamemon, it's when it's attacking, you delete one of your opponent's 5 cost or lower Digimon. So really, really good effects for Machinedramon to have. The reason we play 2 of Metal Tyrannomon is because Reboot is just really, really strong. It prevents your Machinedramon from being beaten over by stuff like, for example, Jesmon. Unless they have, of course, use Judgment of the Blade, but again, they would first need Judgment of the Blade if you have Reboot. But yeah, those are just the most basic inheritable effects for Machinedramon. Moving on to our other black level 5s, we play 2 copies of Megadramon, 1 copy of Gigadramon, and 1 copy of a card I didn't even know it was a cyborg, but it is. 1 copy of Volcanomon. If you already know this Megadramon, you know it just gives you blocker, so really, really good. Especially since we do play Sword of Fiend in this deck. So if we do effectively, so if your Machinedramon only has this Megadramon left in its evolution source because it detached 4 to prevent its deletion twice, you can Digivolve into your Sword of Fiend, and then it becomes a blocker that if it's deleted, deletes your opponent's Digimon. So really, really good combo. That's why we play 2 of it. It's also why we only play 1 Andromon, because this is just a more generic effect. Then we got Gigadramon, which boosts your Machinedramon by 2000 during your opponent's turn. And Volcanomon is effectively the same effect as the red Megadramon, well, the new red Megadramon. It's really confusing considering there's like so many variants of Megadramon already. In the sense that during your turn, while your opponent has a Digimon that's unsuspended, it gains security attack +1. With Megadramon, you gain security attack +1 if it's just a machine. So yeah, just to have another set number that gives security attack +1 is really nice. Moving on to our red level 5s, we play 1 copy of the EX1 Metal Greymon, 1 copy of the BT1 Metal Greymon, as well as 1 copy of the EX1 Megadramon that I mentioned just now. What Metal Greymon does is when it's attacking, you can delete one of your opponent's 4000 DP or lower Digimon. This effect doesn't really come out all that often, because in most cases you just trash your cyborgs, or just attach them to your Machinedramon immediately. But if you do hardcast them to, you know, pass a turn or something, it is a nice effect to have to get rid of stuff like Tumon or Gazimon, or just in general memory blockers. Its inheritable effect is that while this Digimon has Dragonkin or Machine in its traits, it gains Piercing, so really, really good offensive inheritable effect. What BT1 Metal Greymon does is it has security attack +2, so it does 3 checks in general. The downside is that when it's attacking, you lose 5 memory. But then again, there's a lot of times in security control where you just pass because you don't want to waste a deletion card, for example. And in this situation, this Metal Greymon actually becomes viable, especially since we do have cards that, you know, allow us to hardplay Metal Greymon without giving our opponent too much memory. Like, for example, if you have several Izzy and Joe, there's like no issue in hard playing this Metal Greymon. So yeah, in general, that's the reason why I play this Metal Greymon over, for example, Megadramon. You can just as well swap out this Metal Greymon for Megadramon, but it does give 1000 DP less in its inheritable effect. As I was about to say before mentioning Megadramon, this Metal Greymon gives your Machinedramon 3000 DP during your turn, so it makes it a 14,000 beat stick. And this one gets 2000, so yeah, that's the reason why I play it over the red ET6 Megadramon. Speaking of red Megadramons, this Megadramon, when it's played, you delete 2 of your opponent's 3000 DP or low Digimon, again a card that can get rid of memory blockers. And its inheritable says, as I mentioned earlier when I was explaining Volcanomon, when this Digimon has Machine in its type, it gets Security Attack +1. So this is a more quote-unquote generic version of Volcanomon's effect, but, you know, we play one of each to have, you know, still 2 of the same effect in the deck, but with different set numbers. Alright, moving on to our level 6s. We play 4 copies of Machinedramon, as well as 3 copies of Machinedramon. If you played Machinedramon before watching this video, you already know what it is, but in case you don't know anything about Machinedramon, when he's played, you attach 5 Cyborg level 5 Digimon from your trash, or specifically red or black level 5 Cyborg Digimon from your trash or hand to his evolution source, and for each one you get +1 memory, so effectively this does turn Machinedramon into a 7-cost level 6, if you have a full stack, of course. Since we do have ways of generating a lot of memory in this deck, you don't always have to have a full stack to use them to its full potential, but you know, it pays off. So yeah, but if you're in a pinch, don't get scared and don't play him even if you have like 3 or 4 pieces in your hand. Yeah, if you have like 3 pieces, it's already fine. You can already prevent one deletion with that. Speaking of which, his second effect is that during all turns, his DP cannot be reduced, so cards like, for example, Vibrant Breath don't do anything to him. And his last effect is that if he were deleted by battle or card effect, you can detach 2 of your Cyborg-type Digimon from his evolution source to prevent that deletion, so that makes Machinedramon really, really hard to get rid of, with deletion effects, and DP reduction, of course. DP reduction doesn't work at all. The only way that your opponent can get rid of Machinedramon is with Digivolve. Stuff like Crocodile's Breath, so bouncing, or Millenniumon, so again bouncing, but instead of to the hand like Crocodile's Breath, it's bouncing to the deck. So these 3 types of effects are really annoying for Machinedramon, but other than that, this guy just stays on the board. If you play, for example, against on a Courage deck, you just prevent the deletion by one of Courage, and your opponent doesn't get to remove a card from your security stack, which is annoying for security control. So yeah, Machinedramon really, really good, and I feel like, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, that the security control engine really works well with Machinedramon. Our last level 6, Machinedramon, playing 3 times, because I do want to see him often, but I don't really feel like playing him at 4. What Machinedramon does is, when it's played, if you have 3 of your security cards, you trigger recovery +2. So effectively, if you are exactly at 3, you bring yourself back to the beginning of the game state, so back to 5 security. But it also helps you to, well, you know, obviously survive, because if you're, for example, at 0 security, you have ways to block, but, or like survive in that sense, or like delete your opponent, but if he has just 1 more hit, you lose. Machinedраmon's really, really good to just get 2 more cards in your security stack, especially since we do play don't want to say a lot of removal cards, but we play 8 removal option cards, and getting those into the security stack with Machinedраmon's really nice. Getting Sword to Feed into the security stack with him is also really nice. So again, just having another way to recover with Machinedраmon's nice. The second effect doesn't really come up unless you play Lucemon or Salamon in this deck, which you can of course do. As I mentioned before, if I were to cut a card for a Salamon or Lucemon, if you want to play Lucemon for whatever reason, I would cut 2 Hagurumons, because I just still like Hagurumon. But yeah, secondary effect just plays a level 3 yellow Digimon. I don't want to ramble all too much about Machinedramon now. Moving on to our last level 7, we play 4 copies of Sword to Feet. Not last level 7, last Digimon is Sword to Feet. You probably already know him. You already know that he's fucking expensive. I'm just glad that I got my playset when he was at a reasonable price. Although then again, like, for what he does, I feel like 40 bucks is fine. Pulled the odds on myself, of course. I wouldn't buy that one. It's too expensive. But yeah, what Sword to Feet does is he's a security Digimon, but unlike other security Digimon, he does not battle, so your opponent's Digimon is not deleted if they run into him. Which is a major downside, but then again, they had to balance him in some regard. It's a level 7 that plays itself for free from the security, so the dory. When you Digivolve into Sword Defeat, you delete a Tamer, and when he's deleted, you can delete one of your opponent's Digimon, which is pretty useful with a certain Cyber card, which is Machinedramon. Because a Sword Defeat with Blocker is really toxic, because if your opponent has a Digimon that is stronger than your Sword Defeat, of course, but it is a blocker, your opponent doesn't really want to attack with it. So, yeah, and if they do attack and you block with a Sword Defeat, you can just delete that Digimon or another Digimon. So, yeah, really, really good combo. That's why we also play 2 of the blocker Machinedramon. You can always, of course, cut one of the cyborgs that I play 2 of to play another one. Moving on to our Tamers. 4 copies of Izzy and Joe. Should be pretty obvious why we play them. Lets us enable our black option cards, and it's the best memory tamer in the game, guys. In my opinion, at least. It's the best generic memory tamer in the game. Because what it does is, if your opponent has 2 or more Digimon, you gain +2 memory. This gives heavy pressure to decks that rely on a lot of chip damage. It punishes your opponent for playing extra Digimon. I've seen a lot of cases where your opponent just, it just plays 1 Digimon, and Security Control can deal with 1 singular Digimon relatively well, depending on the Digimon, of course. So, yeah, Izzy and Joe is just fantastic. Their second effect isn't really as important in this build. It does come up if your Machinedramon's deleted, of course, or if one of your black cyborgs or Hagumon's deleted. It says during your opponent's turn, when one of your black Digimon's deleted, you draw 1 card, which can come up. It can be handy to draw 1 more card, but we just play it for the main effect. Alright, next up, moving on to our option cards. We play 4 copies of Vibrant Breath, 4 copies of Holy Wave, as well as 4 copies of Reinforcing Memory Boost. Should be quite obvious why we play these 2, but starting with Violent Breath, it's effectively Gaia Force for yellow, which gets rid of pretty much everything in the game that isn't protected from DP reduction, of course, or, well, isn't boosted by an opponent's turn effect, which in most cases that's just going to be black, because I think only black has cards that boost during the opponent's turn. Unless I'm forgetting about one. So yeah, this gets rid of most cards in the game. So really, really strong. Holy Wave is just literally recovery of 1 either in hand or security. So again, pretty vital for the deck. Lets you put stuff like your security Digimon into your security stack. Play them for free. And the best recovery card, but then again the most annoying card to have in your security, is Reinforcing Memory Boost. What Reinforcing Memory Boost does is, when it's played, you reveal the top 2 cards of your deck. Then you can place 1 of them in your security stack and add 1 of them to your hand, which does help in the Machinedramon build a lot. I've seen a lot of people play Black Memory Boost in Machinedramon, but I have personally, I feel like Black Memory Boost doesn't really fit Machinedramon, because you do not want to put your cyber pieces at the bottom of your deck, which, Memory Boost does. So if you take a Machinedramon from the pile of 4 cards, the rest goes underneath the deck, and you're probably never going to see it again. So if one of your vital cyborg pieces goes underneath the deck with Black Memory Boost, it's gone. It makes your Machinedramon less consistent in exchange for memory. And also Connection has a requirement to be played, or at least you can play it, but then you don't get the memory. So again, I don't know, I'm not really happy with the memory options that pure Machinedramon has, but with Reinforcing Memory Boost, that's the fact that you can pick and choose what you put into your security stack with this card, and in fact, it is a memory boost, so it stays on the field because of its delay effect, and then next turn you can just remove it to get free memory. It's really good. The only downside is it does not activate the effect when it's played from security, or rather, it's placed from security, but, balancing. Our last 4 option cards are 2 copies of Iron Fist and Onslaught and 2 copies of Ultimate Flare. Just to have another set of Gaia Forces effectively, or Vibrant Breaths. Also lets you delete a lot of cards if they have the same play cost, because what Iron Fist and Onslaught does is that it deletes all the opponent's Digimon with the highest play cost. So helps against decks like, for example, Diaboromon, who play a lot of 14 cost tokens, so 1 Iron Fist and Onslaught just gets rid of all of them. And Ultimate Flare is just really good against rush decks and bond decks, because what it does is it de-devolves 3 3 times, and then it deletes all of your opponent's Digimon with 3 costs or lower. And you know, Bond decks, they just play a shit ton of Agumon and Gabumon. That was Strawbymon if they do play a hybrid engine in there. But in most cases, they're going to just be Digimon free. It's going to turn back into a Gabumon. Gone. So, this meta Ultimate Flare is really good. I might even consider removing Iron Fist Onslaught entirely and just playing 4 copies of Ultimate Flare. But, you know, Iron Fist Onslaught has its uses. I just have to do some more playtesting, I guess. Anyways, that's the end of my deck profile. And before I launch the outro, I've added a new part for my deck profiles. So, because I don't want to be a dick and force you guys to watch my entire video, because, you know, I know from my own experience that I just like having a full list of all the cards that are in the deck. I just added a end screen for this, or at least like a pre-outro screen, which just shows the entire deck build. So you can just skip to this part to look over the entire build, pause it, so you can copy the deck profile if you want to try it out for yourself. So, yeah. But anyways, if you enjoyed my deck profile, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!